The stars had been quiet for too long. Admiral stood at the center of his command bridge, his four arms folded behind his back as he watched the endless darkness through the viewing screen. The exploration fleet had been traveling through this region of space for 11 years. They had found rocks. They had found ice. They had found dead worlds with poisoned air and frozen oceans. But they had not found life. Was beginning to think this corner of the galaxy was empty. His people, had been exploring the stars for 3,000 years. They had met 17 different intelligent species across the cosmos. Some had welcomed them as friends. Others had fought them as enemies. But in the end, all of them had joined the collective. That was how things worked. They were older, stronger, and wiser than anyone they met. Resistance was foolish. Cooperation was the only logical choice. But first, you had to find someone to cooperate with. "Admiral," a voice called from the sensor station, "I am detecting something unusual." Turned his large, dark eyes toward the speaker. It was his best scout commander. Was young for his position, but his instincts were sharp. If he said something was unusual, it was worth investigating. "Show me," said. The main viewing screen changed. Instead of empty space, it now showed a gas giant, a massive ball of swirling orange and red clouds. The planet was unremarkable. They had seen thousands like it, but one of its moons was different. The fourth moon was small and gray. Its surface was covered in craters and dust. There was nothing special about it at all, except for the structures. Leaned forward, his heart began to beat faster. There were buildings on that moon, domes made of metal and glass, towers reaching toward the sky, roads connecting different areas, lights glowing in the darkness. Someone lived there. Analysis demanded. His fingers moved quickly across his controls. The structures appeared to be artificial habitats for growing food, mining installations, power generators. I'm also detecting heat signatures consistent with biological life. How many? Approximately 12,000 individuals. Felt excitement rising in his chest. 12,000 was not a large number. This was clearly a small colony, not a major civilization, but it was still a discovery. After 11 years of nothing, they had finally found someone. "What species?" asked. Hesitated. "Unknown, Admiral. The heat signatures are similar to several species we have encountered before, but not an exact match. This may be a species we have never seen." A new species. Allowed himself a small smile. The Supreme Council would be very pleased with this report. Discovering a new intelligent species was a rare honor. It meant promotions, recognition, and glory. "Scan for weapons," ordered. "Military installations, defense systems." Worked in silence for several minutes. When he looked up, his expression was confused. "I am detecting no military presence, Admiral. No weapons platforms. No defense satellites. No warships. Their technology appears to be approximately 100 years behind our own. They have basic spacecraft, but nothing capable of interstellar travel." Found this interesting. A colony without military protection suggested two possibilities. Either these beings were extremely peaceful or they were extremely confident. Given their low technology level, peace seemed more likely. "A young species," said thoughtfully. "Isolated from their, perhaps, cut off from their civilization." That would explain their limited development, agreed. Made his decision quickly. "Prepare a first contact team. I want you to lead it personally, observe them first, learn what you can, then make peaceful contact." "Understood, Admiral." Gathered his team within the hour. 5 scouts, chosen for their intelligence and their calm temperaments. First contact was delicate work. One wrong move could turn potential friends into permanent enemies. Had done this before. He knew how to be careful. Their shuttle descended toward the moon's surface under cover of darkness. They landed several kilometers from the main settlement, hidden behind a ridge of gray rock. From there, they watched. The colony was called New. Learned this by intercepting their communication signals. The beings who lived there called themselves humans. They spoke a language that the translation systems could decode with only minor difficulty. The humans were strange-looking creatures. They had only 2 arms and 2 legs. Their skin came in various shades of brown and pink. They had hair on their heads but nowhere else. Their eyes were small and forward-facing, like predators, but their behavior did not seem predatory at all. Watched them for 3 days. He saw farmers tending to crops inside the. He saw miners extracting minerals from the gray rock. He saw children playing in open squares while their parents watched and smiled. He saw old people sitting together, talking and laughing. Everything about the colony seemed peaceful, normal, ordinary. But something bothered, something he could not quite identify. On the 3rd night, he realized what it was. They were too big. The agricultural sections could produce food for 50,000 people, maybe more. The housing blocks had room for far more than 12,000. The infrastructure, the roads, the power systems, the water treatment plants, all of it was designed for a much larger population. Where had everyone gone? Reported his observations to Admiral. The Admiral listened carefully, then made a dismissive gesture with one of his arms. Many colonies experience population decline in their early years, said. Disease, accidents, failed harvests, it is common among young species. The important thing is that they have survived. They have built something lasting, and soon they will have the protection of the collective. Was not entirely satisfied with this explanation, but he was a soldier, and soldiers followed orders. If the Admiral said the population decline was normal, then it was normal. Make contact tomorrow, instructed. Offer friendship, offer assistance. Show them that we come in peace. Yes, Admiral. That night looked down at the human colony from his hidden position on the ridge. The lights of New glowed softly in the darkness. Somewhere down there, 12,000 humans were sleeping, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. Wondered if they would be grateful. He wondered if they would be afraid. He did not wonder if they would be dangerous. That possibility never occurred to him. The humans were small, weak, and technologically inferior. They had no weapons. They had no military. They were clearly a peaceful species. What threat could they possibly pose? Would spend the rest of his life wishing he had asked that question more seriously. But on that quiet night, watching the soft lights of New, he felt only curiosity and mild anticipation. First contact was always exciting. He had no idea that this one would be different from all the others. He had no idea what the humans were hiding. And he had no idea that by the time he learned the truth, it would already be too late. The morning sun rose over New, painting the gray landscape in shades of gold and orange. Watched the light spread across the colony from his shuttle's cockpit. His hearts were beating faster than usual. Today was the day. First contact. His team had prepared everything according to protocol. They wore formal uniforms instead of armor. They carried translation devices instead of weapons. Their shuttle was painted in bright colors to show they came in peace. Gave the order and the shuttle lifted into the air. They flew slowly toward the main settlement, making no attempt to hide. They wanted to be seen. They wanted the humans to have time to prepare. The response came quickly. A voice crackled through their communication system, speaking in the human language. The translation device converted it instantly. Unknown vessel, you are approaching New settlement. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. Cleared his throat. This is Scout Commander of the Exploration Fleet. We are peaceful explorers. We wish to make contact with your people and offer friendship. There was a long pause. Could imagine the confusion on the other end. The humans had probably never encountered aliens before. This moment would be overwhelming for them. Finally, the voice returned. Vessel, you are cleared to land at coordinates we are transmitting now. A greeting party will meet you. Welcome to New. The landing area was a flat square of concrete near the center of the settlement. As Shuttle touched down, he could see a small group of humans waiting nearby. They stood very still, watching the alien craft with expressions he could not read. Opened the shuttle door and stepped outside. The air was thin but breathable. The gravity was lighter than he was used to. The temperature was cold, but barely noticed these things. His attention was focused entirely on the humans in front of him. There were 5 of them. 3 wore simple gray clothing that looked like uniforms. 1 wore a long coat that suggested authority. And one, a woman with gray-streaked hair and calm, dark eyes, stepped forward to greet him. "I am," she said. "I serve as the governor of this settlement. On behalf of the people of New, I welcome you." Her voice was soft and warm. Her smile seemed genuine, but noticed that her hands were clasped tightly together, hidden in the sleeves of her coat. She was nervous. That was understandable. First contact was frightening for most species. "Thank you, Governor," replied. "I bring greetings from the collective. We have traveled very far to find you. We are honored to meet you." Nodded gracefully. "Please come with us. We have prepared food and shelter for you. You must be tired from your journey." Followed her, his team walking behind him. As they moved through the settlement, he observed everything carefully. The streets were clean and well-maintained. The buildings were simple but sturdy. The people they passed stopped what they were doing to stare at the aliens, but no one seemed hostile. Children pointed and whispered. Adults bowed their heads politely. Everything seemed normal, but could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The man walking beside was named. He was the settlement security chief, a tall, broad-shouldered human with short black hair and a face that revealed nothing. He spoke politely when spoken to, but his eyes never stopped moving. He was watching everything. Recognized that look. He had seen it in soldiers across many worlds. It was the look of someone who was always ready for danger. But what danger could there be? New was peaceful. The humans had no enemies here. They were alone on this moon, far from any threat. Why did their security chief look like he was expecting an attack? The humans brought them to a large building near the center of the settlement. Inside, tables were covered with food, vegetables, fruits, cooked meats, and other dishes that did not recognize. The smells were strange but pleasant. "Please eat," said. "We hope you will find our food acceptable. We do not know what your species prefers." Tasted several dishes. They were good. His team seemed to enjoy the meal as well. The atmosphere was friendly and welcoming. After the meal, took them on a tour of the settlement. She showed them where crops were grown, the mines where minerals were extracted, the schools where children learned. Everything was impressive in its simplicity. The humans had built a functioning society in a harsh environment with limited resources. But again and again, noticed the empty spaces. Buildings that stood dark and unused, residential blocks with no residents, workstations with no workers. The colony had clearly been designed for many more people than currently lived there. Finally, asked the question that had been bothering him since he first arrived. "Governor, I notice that your settlement has capacity for many more people than I see here. May I ask what happened? Where are the others?" Smile flickered for just a moment. It was so brief that almost missed it. Then her expression returned to its normal warmth. "We lost many during the hard years," she said simply. "Disease, accidents. The early days of the colony were very difficult. We do not speak of the hard years." She said the last sentence with a tone of finality. The subject was closed. Wanted to press further, but he remembered his training. First contact required patience. Trust had to be built slowly. If the humans did not want to discuss their past, he would respect that for now. "I understand," he said. "Every colony has its struggles. What matters is that you survived." Yes, agreed, we survived. That night sent a report to Admiral. He described everything he had seen: the peaceful settlement, the friendly people, the advanced agricultural systems, the complete absence of military presence. He also mentioned the population mystery and the phrase, the hard years. Was not concerned. Focus on building trust, the Admiral instructed. The past does not matter. What matters is the future. These humans are alone and vulnerable. They need the protection of the collective. Show them that we are their friends and they will join us willingly. Agreed with the strategy. It had worked with other species before. Patience and kindness were more effective than force. But later that night, as he lay in the quarters the humans had provided, found himself thinking about's watchful eyes. He thought about's hidden hands. He thought about the empty buildings and the missing people and the words that no one wanted to speak. The hard years. What had happened during the hard years? And why were the humans so determined to keep it secret? Outside his window, the settlement was quiet. The lights in most buildings had gone dark. Only a few people moved through the streets: night workers, patrol guards, ordinary citizens going about their lives. Everything looked peaceful. But somewhere deep in his chest, in a place he could not name, felt afraid. He did not know why. He would not understand until it was far too late. The humans of Nu had been waiting for this moment for 50 years. They had prepared for it. They had planned for it. And now that the aliens had finally arrived, they were ready. They were always ready. That was the lesson of the hard years. That was the only lesson that mattered. 3 weeks passed. Admiral grew impatient. The humans were friendly, yes. They were cooperative, yes. But they were also slow. Every request for information was met with delays. Every question about their technology was answered vaguely. Every attempt to discuss formal integration into the collective was politely postponed. "We need time to consider," Governor would say with her gentle smile. "This is a very important decision. We must consult with our people." Understood diplomacy. He understood that trust required patience. But he also understood that the humans were hiding something. He could feel it in his bones. "I want a full survey of this moon," he told his science officer. "Geological, biological, everything. And I want it done without human oversight." Was confused. "Admiral, that could be seen as a violation of their trust. If they discover we are investigating them secretly." "Then they should not have given us reason to investigate," interrupted. "Something is wrong here. I want to know what it is." Assembled a team of researchers. They worked at night when the humans were asleep. They used advanced sensors that could scan deep beneath the surface. They mapped every square kilometer of the moon's surface. What they found changed everything. The first discovery was in the soil. Around the colony, extending outward for several kilometers, the ground contained unusually high levels of calcium phosphate. Recognized the substance immediately. It was bone ash, the remains of organic material that had been burned at extremely high temperatures. "How much?" demanded when he received the report. "Thousands of kilograms, Admiral, perhaps tens of thousands, scattered across multiple sites around the settlement." Felt his blood turn cold. Bodies. That is the logical conclusion. Someone burned a very large number of bodies here. The second discovery was worse. Deep beneath the surface, the sensors detected a network of tunnels and bunkers. Many of them had been collapsed deliberately, sealed from the inside, hidden from view. But the sensors could still detect what was inside them: more remains, more bones, more evidence of death on a massive scale. The third discovery was the worst of all. On the far side of the settlement, half buried under gray dust, there was a structure that did not appear on any of the maps the humans had provided. It was large, easily the size of an arena or stadium. Its walls were thick and reinforced. Its floor sloped downward toward a central area. and in that central area there were drainage channels carved into the stone. Drainage channels designed to carry away liquid. Studied the images for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Admiral, I believe this was used for combat, for killing. The drainage channels would have carried away blood." "Felt sick. How many people died here?" "I cannot say with certainty, but based on the size of the structure and the evidence of remains in the surrounding area, thousands, possibly tens of thousands." For a long moment the command bridge was silent. Every officer present was thinking the same thing. The humans of Nu had seemed so peaceful, so gentle, so ordinary. What had they been hiding? Made his decision. "Bring security chief to my ship. I want answers." Arrived within the hour. He stood in the center of the command bridge, surrounded by armed guards. His expression was calm. His posture was relaxed. He showed no fear at all. "You wish to speak with me, Admiral?" Displayed the evidence on the viewing screen, the bone ash, the collapsed tunnels, the arena with its drainage channels. He watched space for any reaction. There was none. "You have discovered our past," said simply. "I wondered how long it would take." "What happened here?" demanded. "What did your people do?" Was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was steady and matter-of-fact. "You wish to know about the hard years. Very well, I will tell you what happened. But I warn you, Admiral, you may not like what you hear." He walked toward the viewing screen, studying the images of the arena. 30 years after our colony's ship landed on this moon, our main power source began to fail. The fusion reactor that kept us alive was dying. We had engineers. We had materials. We could repair it. But the repair would take time, almost a decade. And during that time, we would not have enough power to sustain our full population. "How many people were living here then?" asked. 41,000, replied. "Men, women, and children, families who had traveled across the stars to build a new home." "And how many could survive on reduced power?" 4,000, perhaps a few more. Understood the mathematics. He had seen similar situations on other worlds. "So you reduced your population. You decided who would live and who would die." "Yes," said, "but not in the way you imagine." He turned to face the Admiral directly. His eyes were dark and unreadable. "We did not draw lots. We did not select people randomly. We did not choose the young over the old or the strong over the weak. Instead, we let people choose for themselves." "Choose how?" "Through competition, through combat, through the proving." Gestured toward the arena on the screen. Everyone who wanted to survive had to fight for it. Those who won continued to the next round. Those who lost were removed. The process continued until only 4,000 remained. Stared at him in horror. "You made your people kill each other for survival." "We did not make anyone do anything," corrected. "People could choose not to participate. They could choose to die peacefully. Many did, but many others chose to fight. They chose to survive. And the ones who survived," he paused, "they were the strongest, the most determined, the ones who would do anything to live." "That is barbaric," said. Shrugged, perhaps, but we are still here. Our colony still exists. Our children still laugh and play in the sunlight. Can you say the same about the other colonies that faced similar situations? The ones who tried to be fair and equal and civilized?" Had no answer. Smiled slightly. It was not a warm smile. "The proving lasted 9 years. When it ended, 12,000 people remained, more than we expected because our engineers worked faster than predicted. We burned the bodies of the dead. We sealed the tunnels where the fighting had taken place. We buried the arena under dust and rock. And then we moved forward." "You pretended it never happened." "No," said firmly. "We remember. Every person in Nu knows what happened during the hard years, but we do not speak of it to outsiders. We do not celebrate it. We do not apologize for it. We simply continue." He stepped close enough that the Admiral could see the scars on his hands and the coldness in his eyes. Now you know our secret, Admiral. You know what humans are capable of when survival is at stake. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Did not answer immediately. He was too busy thinking about everything he had seen since arriving at New. The peaceful farms, the happy children, the gentle smiles and polite words. All of it hiding this truth. These humans were not soft. They were not weak. They were survivors of the worst kind, people who had fought and killed their own neighbors to stay alive. And they had been living peacefully for 50 years, waiting. Waiting for what? Looked at its calm face and felt fear for the first time since arriving at this moon. He was beginning to understand. They had been waiting for someone like him. Admiral could not sleep that night. He lay in his quarters aboard his flagship, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything had told him. The proving, the combat arena, the tens of thousands of bodies burned to ash, the 9 years of killing that had reduced a population of 41,000 to 12,000. Part of him wanted to believe it was a lie, a story invented to frighten him, but the evidence was real. The bone ash was real. The collapsed tunnels were real. The drainage channels in that buried arena were real. The humans had done exactly what said. The next morning, Governor contacted his ship. Her voice was as warm and gentle as ever, but there was something different in her tone, something harder. Admiral, I understand that Security Chief has shared some of our history with you. I would like to invite you to visit our archive. I think it is important that you see the full truth, not just a summary. Hesitated. Part of him wanted to refuse. Part of him wanted to order his fleet to leave this moon and never return. But another part of him, the part that had spent his entire life exploring the unknown, needed to understand. I will come, he said. He brought, and with him, 3 armed guards accompanied them, though was beginning to suspect that weapons would not help if the humans decided to be hostile. Met them at the entrance to a building near the center of the settlement. She was alone, no guards, no assistants, just a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. Thank you for coming, she said. What I am about to show you is not something we share with outsiders, but you have already learned part of our story. You deserve to know the rest. She led them down a long stairway carved into the rock beneath the settlement. The air grew colder as they descended. The lights grew dimmer. After several minutes, they reached a heavy metal door. Placed her hand on a scanner. The door opened with a soft hiss. Welcome to the archive, she said. The room beyond was vast. Its walls were lined with shelves containing books, data crystals, and recording devices. In the center of the room stood a large viewing screen surrounded by comfortable chairs. Everything is here, explained. Every record from the hard years, written logs, audio recordings, video footage, we preserved all of it. Why? Asked. Looked at him with something like sadness. Because we wanted to remember, not to celebrate what we did, but to never forget what we are capable of. Every person in New visits this archive when they reach adulthood. They see what their parents and grandparents did. They understand the price of survival. She activated the viewing screen. The first image showed a recording dated from many years ago. A man appeared on the screen, a young man with tired eyes and a voice that shook with exhaustion. He was sitting in a small room, speaking directly to the camera. My name is, he said. I am recording this for future generations. Today is the first day of the proving. We have made our choice. God help us all. The recording continued, explained the situation in simple terms. The fusion reactor was failing. Power would drop to 20% within months. At that level, the colony could support 4,000 people, maybe a few more if they were careful. The population was 41,000. We held a vote, said. We asked everyone, how should we decide who lives and who dies? Some wanted a lottery, random chance. fair and equal for everyone. Others wanted selection, the young, the healthy, the skilled. Let the leaders choose who was most valuable. His voice grew harder. But there were others who rejected both options. They said that survival should not be given, it should be earned. They said that if people wanted to live, they should prove they deserved to live. They called it the proving. The vote had been close. 52% chose the proving. 48% chose other methods, but in a democracy, the majority ruled. Tomorrow the proving begins, said. Everyone who wants to survive must register. Those who choose not to participate will be removed peacefully if possible. We will not let them suffer, but we cannot support those who will not fight. The screen went dark. When it lit again, the images were different. Watched in silence as the footage showed the arena, the same arena his sensors had discovered buried under dust and rock. But in these recordings it was not buried. It was alive. Thousands of people filled the stands. They watched as others fought in the central area. The fighting was brutal. Weapons were crude, clubs, knives, sharpened tools. The battles were short but violent. Some recordings showed organized competitions. Others showed chaotic brawls where dozens of people fought at once. Some showed individuals hunting each other through the tunnels beneath the settlement. The footage went on and on. 9 years of killing compressed into hours of recordings. Saw ordinary people become monsters. He saw teachers who had never touched a weapon learn to kill with their bare hands. He saw farmers who had spent their lives growing food learn to grow nothing but death. He saw children who should have been playing with toys, watch their parents fight and sometimes die. But the most disturbing recordings were not the violent ones. The most disturbing recordings showed the survivors. After each round of the proving, the winners would gather together. They would eat. They would talk. They would laugh. They had just killed their neighbors, their friends, sometimes their own family members. And then they would sit down and share a meal together. Hal whispered, "How could they do that?" His voice was soft. Because they had to, because the alternative was madness. They could not afford to feel guilt or grief or horror. Those emotions would destroy them. So they learned to put them aside. They learned to do what needed to be done and then move on. She paused. "That is what humans are, Commander. We are not naturally cruel. We do not enjoy violence. But when survival requires it, we can become anything. We can adapt to any situation. We can do things that seem impossible and then live with ourselves afterward." The final recording showed a woman standing alone in the empty arena. The stands were empty. The ground was stained dark with old blood. She looked directly at the camera. "My name is," she said. "I am the last recording of the proving. Today the count has reached 12,000. The proving is over. We have survived." Her face was calm. Her voice was steady. But her eyes were empty, hollowed out by 9 years of horror. "I do not know if future generations will understand what we did. I do not know if they will forgive us. But I want them to know this. We did not have a choice. The universe gave us 2 options, become killers or become corpses. We chose to live." She took a deep breath. "We will rebuild. We will grow food and raise children and create a new society. And we will never forget what we did. We will carry it with us forever, a reminder of what we are capable of, a warning to anyone who threatens us." Her eyes seemed to look directly at through the recording. "We are not monsters, we are survivors, and we will do whatever it takes to stay alive, whatever it takes." The screen went dark. Turned to face Admiral. Her expression was unchanged, calm, gentle, almost apologetic. "Now you know," she said simply. "You know what humans are, you know what we did, and you know that we will do it again if we must." Finally found his voice. "This is madness, this is barbarism." "Perhaps," agreed, "but it is also truth. This is what survival costs, Admiral. This is what humans are willing to pay." She walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. I hope you will consider this carefully when you make your decision about our colony. We would prefer to be friends, but if you force us to be enemies—" She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Understood perfectly. And for the first time in his long career, he was truly afraid of what he had found. Admiral returned to his flagship in silence. He did not speak to anyone. He walked directly to his private quarters and locked the door behind him. For 3 hours, he sat alone in the darkness thinking. The images from the archive played over and over in his mind. The arena, the blood, the empty eyes of survivors who had killed their own neighbors to stay alive. And through it all, the calm voice of Governor explaining everything as if she were describing the weather. This is what humans are. This is what we did, and we will do it again if we must. Had encountered many species during his career. Some had been peaceful, some had been aggressive, some had been strange and alien in ways he could barely understand, but he had never encountered anything like this. The humans were not warriors. They were not conquerors. They were farmers and miners and teachers, ordinary people living ordinary lives. But beneath that ordinary surface lay something terrifying, a capacity for violence that emerged only when survival demanded it. And when it emerged, it was absolute. Made his decision. He could not allow these creatures to remain independent. They were too dangerous. If they joined the collective willingly, they could be controlled, monitored, managed. But if they remained free, they would eventually become a threat. Better to deal with them now, while they were weak. He contacted the Supreme Council and requested permission for military subjugation. The Council, after hearing his report, agreed. These humans were clearly too unstable for peaceful integration. Force was necessary. 3 warships were dispatched from the main fleet, heavy cruisers with full weapons systems, enough firepower to level the entire colony if necessary. They arrived at Nu within 12 hours. Transmitted his ultimatum to Governor. The collective has determined that your colony poses a threat to galactic stability. You will immediately disarm, surrender all weapons, and accept governance. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. His response came quickly. Her voice was still gentle, still calm. Admiral, I urge you to reconsider. We do not want conflict. We have no desire to fight your people, but if you attack us, we will defend ourselves. You have no weapons, replied. No military. Your technology is a century behind ours. What possible defense could you mount? There was a pause. When spoke again, her voice had changed. The warmth was gone. What remained was cold and hard like steel. Admiral, you have seen our history. You know what we are capable of. Do you truly believe that people who survived the proving would not prepare for the possibility of external threats? She paused. We have been waiting for someone like you for 50 years. We hoped you would be friends. We hoped we would never need to use what we have built. But hope is not a strategy. That is the first lesson of the hard years. The transmission ended. Gave the order to attack. The first warship descended toward the colony, weapons charged. Its commander, a veteran named Baron, expected no resistance. The humans had no defense systems, no warships, nothing that could challenge military might. He was wrong. The attack began the moment his ship entered atmosphere. Missiles erupted from hidden launchers beneath the colony's surface, dozens of them, streaking upward with terrible speed. Baron's ship managed to shoot down most of them, but 3 got through. The explosions tore through his shields and crippled his engines. What Baron had time to say, and then his ship was falling, burning, crashing into the gray dust of the moon's surface. Watched in disbelief. Admiral, ground forces are engaging our troops, a voice shouted from the sensor station. The viewing screen showed chaos. Soldiers had landed near the colony, expecting to face unarmed civilians. Instead, they faced hell. Humans emerged from everywhere, from buildings, from underground tunnels, from hidden bunkers beneath the fields. They moved with coordination and discipline. They carried weapons that should not have existed, crude but deadly, designed not for display but for killing. And they fought with a ferocity that they had never seen. Security Chief led the defense personally, watched him on the tactical display, a single human figure moving through the battlefield like a shadow. He killed 3 soldiers in less than a minute. Then he disappeared into a tunnel, only to emerge behind another group and kill them as well. But it was not just. Every human in the colony seemed to be fighting. Farmers who had been tending crops that morning now carried weapons and moved like trained soldiers. Teachers who had been educating children now set ambushes and coordinated attacks. Even the elderly took positions in defensive points, their hands steady on triggers. The children were nowhere to be seen. They had been evacuated to deep bunkers long before the attack began. The humans had planned for this. "Admiral, the second cruiser is taking heavy damage," reported, his voice shaking. "Their ground forces are being overwhelmed. We are losing." Could not believe what he was seeing. 3 warships, hundreds of trained soldiers, advanced technology, against 12,000 farmers and miners. And they were losing. The battle lasted 16 minutes. When it was over, 2 warships were destroyed. The third, flagship, was crippled, barely able to maintain orbit. On the ground, soldiers lay scattered across the gray landscape. Few had survived. The humans had won. Governor appeared on the command bridge's viewing screen. She looked exactly as she had before the battle, calm, gentle, almost apologetic. There was not a spot of blood on her clothing. "Admiral," she said, "I am sorry it came to this. I truly hoped it would not." Stared at her. His hands were trembling. He had never been defeated before. He had never even come close. "How?" he managed to say. "You had no weapons, no military. Our sensors showed nothing." "Your sensors showed what we wanted them to show," replied. "We have been preparing for this day since the hard years ended. Every adult in this colony has trained for combat since they were children. Every building has hidden weapons storage. Every field has concealed bunkers. We learned during the proving that the only way to survive is to be ready for anything." She paused. "You saw the arena, Admiral. You saw the tunnels. Did you truly think that people who survived that would not prepare for external enemies? We are survivors. That is what we do. We prepare. We wait. And when the threat comes, we are ready." Had no response. His expression softened slightly, almost pitying. "I am going to give you a choice, Admiral. You can try to continue this attack, call for reinforcements, bring more ships. We cannot defeat your entire fleet. We know that, but we can make the cost very high. How many lives are you willing to spend to conquer 12,000 humans?" She let the question hang in the air. "Or," she continued, "you can withdraw, return to your people, tell them what you found here, tell them the truth about humans, and then leave us alone." Thought about the images in the archive. The survivors eating together after killing their neighbors. The empty eyes of people who had learned to set aside their humanity and do whatever was necessary. If he continued the attack, those people would fight to the last. They would die eventually, but they would take thousands of with them, maybe tens of thousands. And even if the one, what would they have gained? A burned-out colony, a dead moon, and the knowledge that humans, ordinary, isolated, primitive humans, could resist them like no other species ever had. What would that mean for other colonies, for the human? What would it mean for the collective? "Admiral," said gently, "I do not want more death. I have seen enough death for 100 lifetimes. Let this end. Go home, tell your people what you learned, and pray that you never have to fight us again." Closed his eyes. When he opened them, his face was pale but his voice was steady. "We will withdraw." Nodded. "A wise decision, Admiral. I hope your people will understand." The transmission ended. Gave the orders. His crippled flagship limped away from Nu, leaving behind the wreckage of 2 warships and the bodies of hundreds of soldiers. Behind him on the gray moon, the humans of Nu watched them go. Stood beside Governor on the surface, watching the ship disappear into the stars. "Will they come back?" he asked. Was quiet for a long moment. "Perhaps," she said finally, "but not soon, and when they do come we will be ready." She turned and walked back toward the settlement. There was work to do, weapons to rebuild, defenses to repair, children to teach. Always preparing. Always waiting. Always ready. That was what it meant to be human. That was the lesson of the hard years. And the had just learned it the hard way.